Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video. This is one that I have thought about doing, but then I kind of held it off for a while and then decided, fuck it, I'll just do it my way. But today is only 10 indie decks. I believe this tag was started by Meg at Rose Honey Ritual and Theia at Garden Goddess Tarot. They did the original, like the only 10 mass market edition, but then they came out with an indie one. So I kept debating if I wanted to do this video because, the thing with indie decks is that they can be out of a lot of people's reach sometimes, because with indie decks, it is quality over quantity, like it can kind of be with mass market decks. Usually, not always, but usually card stock is better. Artwork, in my opinion, can a lot of times be superior to a lot of mass market decks. Not always. Again, there's always a not always in there, but it can be for me personally, and also just because I'm very picky. So I do have a lot of indie decks in comparison to mass market. But with that, quality over quantity also usually becomes an increase in price because, indie creators want to be paid basically. And I get it. And I personally do not mind paying those prices, but I know a lot of people, that can be a hard pill to swallow. And even as somebody like me who doesn't make a lot, it is hard sometimes. I have to pick and choose what indie decks I buy and when I buy them, and if I'm going to even buy them at all, right? So because of all those feelings, it was kind of one of those things of do I really want to do this tag? But I decided to do it in a different way to make it a little easier maybe for all of you, and also just to see a difference between Oracle indies and Tarot indies, okay? So this is only 10 indie decks, and it's the only ones you'd want to take with you if something went wrong with your collection and you could only have those, right? But I decided to make my life harder by deciding if I could only take 5 Tarot and only take 5 Oracle, what would those be, And the reason why I decided to do that too is because I've had a lot of Oracle decks enter kind of my collection this year more than any other. So I did want to highlight some of those also. So yeah, we're going to start with the Oracle today, and then I will get into my only 5 of the Tarot. And by the way, there was a lot of decks I could have added. I could have just cannot talk today. I could have just done this video as only the Tarot decks that are indie that I would want to keep forever. But, again, I'm making my life harder. And I also some of these Oracles, I couldn't see my collection without them too. So it's, anyways, let's get into it. The first Oracle deck that I would want to keep in my top 5 Oracle of indies is the Earthbound Oracle. This is 48 card Oracle Divination deck by A.L. Schwartz, also known as School Garden. I showed a little video of this deck. I'm still debating if I want to do a full walkthrough deep dive thing with this. But this Oracle is very interesting. So for those who this name actually sounds kind of familiar, yes, because this is the same creator as the Wooden Tarot. You can find this deck on Etsy. These are the backs, very simple. But the part that's really cool about this deck is the fact that this is a deck where the images were drawn. You could probably see it, the grains, and they were drawn on different pieces of wood. So each card kind of has a different saturation and everything. But the reason why I wouldn't be able to go without this deck is because there's so much that can be said from the messages of this deck, okay? Like, I think the keywords are very strong. It's a very intuitive oracle. And there's a lot of meanings that you can assign it yourself, because there is no guidebook with this oracle, okay? There isn't one. So this is a deck, I think, that is really good for people who read tarot and oracle more intuitively, right? If you read more intuitively, you will not have a hard time deriving meaning from this deck. If you are somebody who does need more or needs a guidebook and all of that, yeah, this might not be the deck for you. And by the way, just with the caveat as I'm going through this is I'm not trying to make you buy any of these decks. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. Again, indie decks are very expensive. Some can't get them, like straight up can't get them depending on where you live. The reason why I'm showing these though is that these are the ones personally that are working the best in my practice, and therefore I personally could not live without them. But do I think these decks are all for everybody? No, of course not. And I'm not going to tell you to go and buy them. I'm just showing you the ones that I could not live without, okay? But yeah, anyways, with that caveat, this is the Earthbound Oracle. And it is just so cool and weird and just right up my alley, you know? I couldn't live without this one now that I have it. It took me a while, by the way. This creator, just as a caveat, so you know, if you are interested in this deck and have the means of which to get it, he does this weird thing where he, you can find it on Etsy, but sometimes this deck is not available. Like, he'll just close down the shop and be like, lols, I'm not selling this for a little while. So just keep an eye out for it if you are interested. I don't remember how much this one was worth, I'll be honest, but it's only $48, and I'm pretty sure it was cheaper, so I'm trying to remember, but I don't. Anyways, next one. This one will surprise some people because this is a new deck in my collection, and I haven't worked with it wildly, but I think it's one of the best because this deck's guidebook. Okay, now this one might be cheating also because I heard that Dirt Gems is going to become mass market. I don't know at what publishing house. I don't know where. Oh, by the way, mine it arrived to me this way, so it makes me very sad. So just don't look at that. So maybe this is cheating. But I really love this deck because, my goodness, if you want a good oracle, especially to learn plant, just plant lore and stuff, this guidebook has everything you will need. Like, look at how big this is. Like, all this stuff just for each card. Which makes it, if you're going to have only 10, this is kind of a must-have, right? But let me show you the artwork so you can understand what I mean. I've showed this deck off a couple times. Oh, yeah, that's the box. Very cool. I've showed this deck off a couple times. This is indie. It's got a thinner cardstock. But I guess if you're a riffle shuffler, you'd probably like that. But yeah, and these are the backs. This is the second edition. This is still indie at the time that I'm filming this. It will eventually become mass market. And I don't know what that cardstock or any of that will look like. But I am obsessed with this deck. I'm obsessed with the idea of deep diving into this deck. Of not just the messages of the few times I have pulled with this deck, like really sitting with them and understanding them and being able to like really understand, I guess, the plants that they relate to also well. But I also think this is a great deck and a must-have for me because of what it can really teach me. This deck goes really deep into the lore of these plants and their origins. And because of that reason, I think for me, this would be a must-have, especially if I consider the only other deck I have that's really like this one is the Seed and Sickle Oracle. And that one's a mass market, but I don't like the cardstock on that one. So if I ever had to do almost like what Lisa Pepez does, where she does like a this or that and kind of had to get rid of it, I can tell you now I would probably keep this one and probably get rid of the Seed and Sickle. But then if I ever wanted to decide to, you know, get that back, I mean, it is a mass market. So, and this one currently is not. So I would probably keep this one over the other one, you know. I'm very excited, by the way, to deep dive. I'm going to use this deck. I already have a plan. I'm going to use this deck a lot in August. But for now, every time I just look at a random card and then look in the meaning in the guidebook, it just fills me with such joy. And for that reason, this had to be in the top 5 of indie oracles for me. It's just so good. And by the way, this also goes really well with the Botanica Tarot. If you've heard of it or have it, I've already shown that a little bit on my channel at the time of me filming this, and you will see that video. So, yeah. But this is, once again, the Dirt Gems Plant Oracle. And I do think this one, for me, has to be a must-have. And yeah. But now, let's go into the next one. This next one, I don't think this will, maybe it will. I don't know if this will surprise any of you, because I feel like I've been talking about this one a lot when I do show, here, I'll put them over here, when I do show decks. But this is my Dream Symbol Oracle deck. This is by Copper Rabbit Illustrations. This is a creator from Canada, so she does post on Etsy or have her own website, but I do think that it'll probably be easier for people who are from Canada to get a hold of this deck versus everybody else, just so you know. But the reason why this deck, I could not live without this deck now that I have this deck, is because it helps so much for me in the way of dream work, in understanding the dreams that I have. Its cardstock is also really good. It has like a great bend, but it snaps back really well. So there's like, as you can see, there's no like bowing with this deck. And the artwork is so cool and so quirky. It, as you can see, it doesn't shy away from showing like the very dark and deep things that can go on in dreams. So this deck is inspired by some of the more common themes that people have in their dreams. Soup is an interesting one. I don't remember ever like having a dream where maybe dreams where I'm cooking, but I don't think I've ever made soup. So some of these are not like completely relevant, I'll say, to me personally, but the reason why this deck sits so well in my practice is because I do a lot of work with trying to understand dreams and myself. And oh, I hate this card, by the way. That's one of the only cards in this deck I really hate because it's just creepy. But it also works anyways. It also works because even if while it's based on a lot of common themes, obviously it doesn't cover everything. So what I do when I work with this deck is I also think about the words, keywords, and things that could be most relevant or adjacent to what my own dreams were about, right? Like if I had a dream where I wasn't necessarily trapped in a cage, but I was trapped in some other way, or somebody was trying to confine me, or, you know, all that kind of nature, I would still probably lean towards going the trapped card, right? So yeah. It just works in that way. I also just love the artwork. I know some people don't like bugs, sorry. And for that reason, I cannot see my practice now without this deck. So this is the Dream Symbol Oracle. And yes, I think I will still do a walkthrough, like a deeper walkthrough of this deck. I just gotta decide when I'm gonna do that. Probably soonish, but you know. But yeah, that's the dream symbol. Next. These next two ones, by the way, are gonna surprise literally nobody. I've had these for a while, but I still cannot see my practice without them. The first is, if I could either get it out, yes. The first one is the Heart's Eye Oracle by Olivia Rose. I've already talked about it. This is my name twin. Well, her name's not actually, her first name last is not actually this, but it's like her two middle names. That's why she has them. Either way, name twin, that's one reason to love this deck. But the other is just that this is such a great all-around oracle. The cardstock is really nice. It's kind of buttery. It almost seems like a rose petal finish and maybe adjacent, but it's really easy to shuffle compared to most rose petal, as you can see. But it feels like rose petal. So first off, cardstock, amazing. The other reason why I could never see myself parting with this oracle, I mean, yeah, it's close to fairies, so not everybody would like this also, by the way. But the reason why I personally could never see myself parting with this oracle is because the keywords in this oracle are just perfect. They are relevant for so many things in my own life personally, like nourish, trust, imagination, vision, even love, right? Truth. They're very cutting and they get to the point. Forgive, right? They just hit the right notes. Transformation. I've had so many powerful readings with this deck. And the colors are just everything. I am obsessed. I love colors, and I love colors in interesting ways. And so for me, this is the right balance. Now, the same creator, by the way, also came out with a mermaid deck. I love mermaids, right? You guys have seen, I had a whole video about mermaids. But for some reason, that deck didn't seem to hit the same notes, or it had overlapping keywords. So I was like, well, I don't need two decks with basically the same keywords. So if you like mermaids instead, though, you might really want that deck instead of this one, because this is, again, more fairy related. But I think this is the right balance for me. This is the one I would want. This is the one I cannot see my own practice not having, you know? And again, backs are brilliant. It is an oracle size. Well, it is, but it isn't. I don't know. It actually feels a little smaller, for instance, than like my Seasons of the Witch, or even, what's the other one? The Green Witch. You know, the rock pool sized oracles. It feels a slightly smaller in those. But at the same time, it's pretty much oracle size. But this one is more manageable for me. And that's why I love it. And why I could just never see myself not having this in my collection, you know? And I definitely think you guys should give this one a chance. I will say the caveat, though, with this deck is that the creator is living in the UK. So this will be harder for people to get a hold of. Once again, this is why I say, like, really think about the decks that are most relevant to you and what you would want. But anyways, this last one is going to surprise literally nobody if you've been in my channel for more than 2 minutes. This is the Coastal Curiosities Oracle by Lennox Reese. This creator is also eventually going to be coming out with a tarot that I've been like just stalking the process of because I'm so excited. This is the Brilliant Box. This is also the 2nd edition. And the sad thing is, at the time of me filming this, I'm pretty sure there's no more of this deck left. So I know that's sad, but it was around for a while. And, you know, maybe in the future, Lennox will come out with a 3rd edition. I don't know. But this is the 2nd. So it has these colored backs. This deck is also on the best linen finish. Oh, if you were a riffle shuffler, you would be obsessed with this deck. Because it's really thin, has good bend, but it still snaps back. Like you can see, my deck doesn't look bowed, right? Doesn't look bowed to me. But this deck could never, ever, 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 ever be parted from me, because this is my aesthetic. These also have amazing keywords. I've had so many really good readings with this deck. This deck has everything and more. It's collage, but it's vintage. It's artwork and creatures and things that would be relevant even to me and like where I live in the world, because this is based on Pacific Northwest. I am in California, but I live in a more, not completely northern, but I live in more northern area than the southern, like LA and all that. I don't live near there at all. So a lot of this imagery is very familiar to me. And so it just feels so personal. And they also have amazing keywords, by the way. Gradual, gather, just cycle. I love the cycle card, especially the salmon. And his doggo, connect. This deck is so amazing. If you don't, I'm so sorry if you've missed out on your chance to get this. I did throw a giveaway when I first got this deck. So one of my viewers does have a copy of this from me because of that. But I kickstarted this deck. I wanted it to be a thing, and it is, and I am so happy that it is. And I could never be parted with this. And then, by the way, the second edition is also great because it comes with a pretty good guidebook. She gives more keyword, or they, I think the creator goes by they, more keywords, more message, and then talks a lot about the images and why they are what they are. So it's an amazing deck, and I could never, ever, 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 ever be parted from this one. So if you had a chance to get this, I hope you really did, because I could not see my practice without it, It is everything. And yeah, I'm still going to be waiting for that tarot, by the way. I really will. I'm just waiting around for it to come out. But now that we've gone through the oracles, the top 5 oracle I would always want with me, cannot be parted with, let's now talk about tarot. This was by far the hardest thing about this video. I could have, like I said, I could have done just a video talking about my favorite indie tarot. That could have just been the video instead of mentioning any oracle at all. But I decided to challenge myself, and I said, yep, what are the top 5 though? What are the top 5? Which ones could you not ever be without? And I'm going to start with the smallest. This is the Monsoon Tarot. I know, this is ridiculous. I have small hands, but this, it takes up most of my hand, but I still have space, This deck is a baby. You can see by the tuck box, it's beat up. I literally take it everywhere I go. Like literally, I'll just shove it in a bag because it fits in any bag. It's amazing. And that's probably one of the reasons why this deck has to always be in my collection, because you need at least one travel size deck. I mean, you're going to see another one that's also travel size, and it is in a tin, so those are kind of durable in general, but this one is even more so. The cards are small. It's got linen finish, so another linen. I love linen finish. And it's got linen, but it bounces back really well. So again, this is a deck that also does not bow at all. This might not be practical for a lot of people because it is so tiny, but I am obsessed with this deck. Oh my goodness. I think one of the reasons why I'm obsessed is because the artwork in this deck is so fucking good. It's like, it's serving a lot of like Studio Ghibli meets, what would I even say? Like anime, like typical anime manga, like imagery combined with like, yeah, I guess like Studio Ghibli. Come on, camera, focus. Yep. Studio Ghibli, and even just like dreams, like imagery that you would find very much in your dreams. This deck serves it all. The Monsoon Tarot is so good. There is a full-size edition. So let me tell you, there is a full-size edition of this deck. It's from Woe Studios. They're the same people, or Vermilion, I think it's. I don't know. It's very confusing because the box says Woe Studio, but then it's sold on this website called Vermilion, so you can get it if you're in the US. I don't know about how easy it is to ship to Canada or the UK, but you can get it through that website. And they have a lot of different decks. They've also have the Dream Visions, which I didn't. That was what's hard. I could have added so many more decks. I did not include the Dream Vision Tarot in here. That would have been probably number 6 on my list. And this one edged out. Can you believe? And I think it's just because like I use this one a lot more than I use Dream Vision. Like this Hermit is literally a mood. This Hermit is everything. So yeah, this is why. Oh no, by the time you guys see this video, I forgot to include this card. I forgot to include it in my extras deck because this is an extra, damn it. Anyways, either way, this deck is everything. This is my best mini, and I just am obsessed with the imagery and the meaning. The mini does not come with a guidebook. The regular version I hear does, but it might not be the greatest guidebook either. So this is more of a deck also where you have to decide the meanings more of the cards. And for me, that's perfectly fine because I can derive a lot of meaning from them. But yeah, this is the Monsoon. Next. This will surprise literally nobody because I've always talked the high praises of this. This is the Prisma Visions Tarot. This is the edition that is in a tin, right? Making it smaller and easier to carry around. And I have. This deck has been kind of beat up a little bit. I've taken it traveling with me. And I love it. I don't think I should go on and on about this because I've already talked so many times about why I can never be parted from this deck. This is one, for instance, this is the one tarot deck that made me want to get into tarot. When it first came out, I was a college student and I saw it and I was obsessed, but I couldn't afford it at the time. This mini, I will say, by the way, from the website is 20 USD. So as you can see, much more affordable than the full-size version. This cardstock is also a matte, which I love a lot. This one does warp. You can see it has maybe the slightest of warp. It has silver edges on this mini. But I am obsessed with this deck, with this artwork. This artwork isn't full colored. Won't be for everybody because it is pointillism. It's a type of art that not everybody can vibe with. Some might find that this is too busy. But I am just obsessed. I could never not have this in my collection. Because a lot of the images, too, are just so powerful. They have a lot of depth. And they just do something that's so different from the traditional tarot. Especially the minors, by the way. The minors all form together. Each different suit forms together to make an image, like a scene, a full scene being shown. And it's just so cool. I don't mind even, by the way, some people might be bothered by this. The major arcana all have borders and the minor do not. And again, it's probably because the minors make the full scene. Some people might not like that, but I do. Now, will I admit that this deck is not always the nicest reader to me? 100%. It's not. If I had to describe the energy of this deck, I would say it's very watery, but also very airy at the same time. Like, it'll let you understand your emotions and let you feel like all the depths of the pain, but it'll also be very blunt and mean and just like tell you straight up like, hey bitch, this is what you need to do. And maybe that's just my experience with the deck, but not for everybody. But I could never, ever be parted from the Prisma Visions. So this is why It's in this video. And the next deck in this video, I don't think is going to surprise anyone either. Because why would it, you know? Why would it at this point? I talk about it so much ever since getting it that it had to be in here. Duh. This is the Northern Animal Tarot. This is also, by the way, the 3rd edition. I have the Imperfect edition, which means, I think in my case, I mean, everybody had a different thing that was imperfect if you bought this deck or had the chance to get this deck. Had a different imperfection, but mine is definitely the box, because this box, the tuck box, is not up to snuff. But yes, as I said, this is the 3rd printing. It's created and made in Canada. So if you live in Canada, this deck would probably be much easier for you to get a hold of. Anthropomorphic Fairy Tale Tarot. This deck is so good. It has so many extra cards in it that also act like Oracle, so maybe that's cheating. I don't know. It has over 100 cards. There's even cards for spreads. Oops, it's upside down. But yeah, spreads. And the reason why I can never part with this deck is because it is just so good. Also, I would say, by the way, out of all the decks I'm going to show today... Oh, actually, no, never mind. I just lied. There's one more that's going to be like this. But this is the more animalistic tarot deck that I'm going to be showing. That's an indie. And this one follows kind of closer to the Rider-Waite-Smith, except for these Oracle cards that are not named for some reason. They are in the guidebook. There is a guidebook that comes with it, and they are named. But on the card themselves, they are not named. I'm obsessed, though, with the cardstock of this deck. It's thicker, kind of, but it has a good bend. It does warp a little. But this cardstock in the 3rd edition, by the way, for those who care about that kind of thing, it is slightly waterproof. So I was like, oh shit, okay. It'll be able to hold up, like, pretty well. The backs are great. And just, this is just me. This is, like, what I like. These are my vibes. Especially for animal-based decks. I was really obsessed with getting this one. And I'm not going to lie to you. This deck is hard to get a hold of. I don't know if this creator is doing another run of the 3rd printing. She did them in waves. So, like, I got this during the 1st wave. But then she did a couple more. But I don't know. I don't remember. But I will say, if you like the style of this deck and you cannot get a hold of this one, this creator is coming out with another one. And I heard it's coming out more in the fall, but I'm not 100% on that, so don't quote me. It could be later, but fall is the current designated time. But this deck is so good. It is closer. If you need a Rider-Waite-Smith clone somehow in your tarot collection, this is probably one of the ones that I would want. It's animals, it's folkloric, it deals with things that I love, and so for that reason, I could never be parted with it. And if you have it too, I know you might really love it. It had a 1st edition, it had a 2nd edition. I know people have those different editions. Some people have all the editions. So it's really a great one. But moving on from that, right? But it is chunky, I will say. This is not relevant to most. But for me, because I have smaller hands, I will say it's sometimes hard to hold the whole deck. I won't lie about that. But anyways, I'm going to move on to the deck that is also, I would consider it, not completely, but I would also consider it closer to being like a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, which is the other option if you can't get a hold of this. Actually, oh shit, I'm sorry guys. I just realized, I said oh shit because I realized this next deck, the Wonderworld Tarot, is actually a little hard sometimes to get a hold of. This is by Push Kitty. But the reason why I cannot be parted with this deck, and why I realized this had to be in my top 5, even over Dream Vision, can you believe? Is because, oh, and it goes like this, but is because this deck is based on my favorite book ever, which is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I'm not going to lie to you. I hate this cardstock. It is very, very strong rose petal finish. I love the feel of rose petal finish. I hate how it clumps together. I'm just going to, I say that every time, but it's true. Like, I can't not talk about this deck without that. But the reason why this is so relevant to me and why I could never not have it in my practice is because this deck, again, features Alice in Wonderland. It is such a great reader for me. I've gotten a lot of great readings. It has this interesting balance of, I don't know how to, I almost feel like this deck is fire, like fire energy plus air, like wands plus suit, plus swords, because it has this really like bubbling go-go-go-ness to it. But it's also not afraid to tell me when things are not going to be great. This deck, why I say this deck is a little harder to get a hold of is because this particular copy that I have is the warm color edition. So this was the first one, right? And I guess there's no more of this. I think the creator is moving to doing a cold color. I don't know how much it's going to change the color scheme as is, but I guess it'll be in cooler tones. This creator also came out with like a mini version, maybe I heard. And I don't know when that cold color edition came out, but I think it was on Kickstarter. So my edition might be no more. But if you still love the artwork, I do recommend it, especially if you are a fan of Alice in Wonderland. This would definitely be the deck for you, but I could never not have it in my collection because it is so great. And it has a lot of my favorite, I guess my favorite pentacles. I was thinking about which ones were, but it's mainly a lot of like pentacles and I think maybe some swords. I don't remember. But yeah, really good deck. And I do recommend it for those who are fans. Okay, I only have one deck left, and I think this deck will not surprise literally anyone. Again, if you've been on my channel for more than a minute. The last deck that I could never see myself without, indie-wise, is the Guided Hand Tarot. This is by, oops, sorry, the box is upside down. This is by Irene Mudd. It's a collage deck, and I slept on this deck for way too long. I knew it could be really good for me, and I just didn't buy it for a very long time, but I've been aware of it for years. This deck is perfect. I don't know how to explain it. It's very perfect. The back is beautiful. And this cardstock, I don't know what this is, but it is so nice feeling. It's like slightly glossy, as you can see, but it's not a high gloss. And it's also, I don't know, it just feels buttery. It's very strange, but I really like it. I don't have any other deck with this cardstock, but if more decks were, I would buy them, probably. I love this deck because it is basically the collage deck for me, if that makes sense. It has a lot of imagery and style to it that just feels like my style the most. I could have also put, you guys know, I have the Practical Magic Tarot, and I do love that deck too. But if I had to think of decks that like I would want the most in my collection, again, because this is what this VR is about, I would pick this one hands down any given time, right? This would be the favorite. Especially the star card, it's so good. I wouldn't pick any others. So this would be the one. And that's why I had to show it off and mention it. Like for only 10, you could easily get this deck. And this deck is always accessible on Etsy for those who are wondering. I have never seen this deck. I don't think Irene's ever closed her shop. I've never seen it closed. So ever since this deck came out, this is probably the most easy out of all the ones I'm discussing today to get a hold of. And I love it. I think if you like collage style decks, this should be in your collection, especially if you like this like artsy, vintagey feel to your collage decks. And yeah, it strikes the right balance for me. It has collage imagery, but it's not all collage, if that makes sense. Like, there's just other flourishes that work. Oh, and this Hermit card is my favorite. So good. So, yeah, those were my picks. These are the ones that I would want to always have in my collection. The oracles I feel like can change, but I have a feeling a lot of the indie tarot, at least in the order of which I love them, probably wouldn't. But yeah, I love this so much. And if you've watched this long, thank you so much for sticking around. I am curious if you've done this tag, sorry. Definitely tell me about it so I can go watch your videos. But those were my choices, and I hope you enjoyed them. Until next time, guys. Bye.